Hi, good morning and welcome to CogX 2020. You are on the Gen Z stage. Hopefully you're in the right place. My name is Anissa Moradadi. I am founder and CEO of Beat Freaks and I am your MC today. We have a jam-packed day full of amazing stuff. So we're going to kick straight into that. Just a quick reminder first to be tweeting. We're at hashtag CogX 2020. The first session this morning is how I got into entrepreneurship, and we're going to be hearing some amazing stories from the panelists. And to introduce that session, I will bring in now the moderator, Hannah Blair.
Thanks, Anissa. Hi everyone, I'm Hannah. I'm a developer and also a co-founder of my own VR startup. And I have the pleasure of introducing you to a really cool panel of people today who are tech entrepreneurs doing really, really well. And yeah, so firstly we've got Abadesi and Caritta.
Hey everyone.
Hi all.
Hi. So do you want to go ahead and give yourself an intro, a little bit about what you do, and then we can just jump ahead with the questions.
Sure. Hi everybody. Thanks so much for having me. I'm Abadesi. I'm the founder and CEO of Hustle Crew. I get to go into tech companies and the rest of my team and train them to understand why their teams are not diverse by default. So we discuss things like racism, identity, bias, and privilege so that they can mitigate their impact in everything from recruitment to product design. And I'm excited to answer your questions.
Awesome.
Perfect. My name is Caritta Seppa. Greetings from Helsinki, Finland, by the way. A pleasure to be here today. I'm the co-founder and chief operations officer at a tech company called Testback. What we do is specialize in mobile energy in creating off-grid solutions by combining software and hardware made for rescue forces and humanitarian agency workers, basically people who work in rural regions without no access to electricity. So our goal is to ensure that we provide them our portable mobile equipment that can ensure that they can have access to energy to power anything they have at any moment. And we are extremely happy to be working with a couple of companies like Plan International, United Nations. And one of our latest solutions right now is to ensure that we are supporting, especially during the COVID-19, a better access to education in off-grid regions.
Nice, thank you. So yeah, I wanted to start off by asking, what was the key moment that you had that made you want to start your company? Where were you in your life? What were you doing? And yeah, how did you get going?
I had just been headhunted out of Amazon into a newer startup, and the beginning was great. I had really great results. I was launching the app in new markets and really kind of hitting all my goals. But when it came to the company culture, I found it to be quite a kind of standard tech bro-y culture. And I didn't feel like I belonged. I often actually felt quite excluded. And there were lots of behaviors happening in the office that really impacted my work. Sometimes I'd be on the phone pitching to a client and, the boys would just start playing a game and the ball's suddenly flying past my head, or like a keyboard being thrown against the wall because someone's really angry. And there was just a very tense masculine energy I really didn't like. And I did my best to recruit women into the company when there were open roles, but I was very unsuccessful. I always got out guys. And things really came to a head when the behavior almost started to feel like it was directed at me. I was also the only Black person in the company at that time. And I was so unhappy that I quit my job with no next move planned. And I mean, my parents were like, what are you doing? My friends were like, how are you going to pay your bills? And I was like, no, I'm just so sick of finishing every workday in tears. I don't want to feel like this. I work hard. I'm a nice person. I should work somewhere people like me. And so I decided to set up a meetup for other women in tech who, like me, didn't have a job, were looking for their next role. And even though we showed up to help each other with our CVs and cover letters, we actually started talking about discrimination and other things that make underrepresented people less productive at work. Then we still haven't really succeeded. So that's where the consulting came in, and that's where we are today. We've worked with over 30 companies from Silicon Valley to London, and our community is about 5,000 folks now in our newsletter and social media.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I can really relate to the whole sort of tech bro culture as a developer. It's kind of everywhere I've worked, it's generally like that. So it's really great that you've created that community for people. And yeah, what about you, Caritta?
Yeah, actually, I think my background, also my journey into the startup tech world, was quite uncommon in the sense that I actually never thought or even planned about opening my own company or even getting involved in tech industry. To be honest, my background is completely non-tech background, so I'm not an engineer, I'm not a coder. I actually previously didn't even work with pretty much with any tech companies. My background is in international relations and public diplomacy. That was something that, I had an idea to go work towards. I worked with the Finnish embassies, with the Finnish foreign ministry. So I never even thought about just skipping all that and starting a company. But I guess, like they say, that most of the best things in the life, they take place when you don't plan accordingly. And that's something that happened. So how I get into co-founding Testback, it was actually through a person, he's our founder. It was his vision and, his passion that I saw that he had of creating a company and providing an opportunity for every individual to become their own masters of energy, to become energy independent. So by listening to his vision and the ideas that he had, it kind of made me extremely excited and open up this completely new world and made me realize that, maybe this is the right moment for me to take a leap, try something new. I mean, throughout my youth and, I still like to see myself young, let's say that, but still, like when I was younger and as a kid, I never really had any exact passion or dream what I want to do with my life. I did quite a lot of different things. I tried many things and I never really seemed to find out the one thing that I really loved. And by meeting with our founder and, learning a lot more about this new world, he made me realize that, this is something I want to try out. So I joined his vision and we co-founded Testback. And to be honest, that was one of the best things that I've ever done. I think today, now, I can definitely say that I'm doing the right thing. I'm extremely excited, what I'm working on. But again, it was never a plan for me. I never had any, if you would go back like a few years back and people would have said that you're going to be, working with technology. Yeah, that was definitely something I would have thought of.
Wow. Okay. So sort of both of you kind of sort of stumbled into it. You didn't really expect it. It just kind of happened as you kind of went with the flow. That's really interesting. Okay, so what does your typical day look like right now? And I know, given the situation, your typical day might be a bit different to usual, but sort of give me an example of what your normal day-to-day looks like and what your sort of COVID-19 situation day looks like and how you've adapted to it all.
Yeah. So everyone knows a founder doesn't really have a typical day, nor does a startup employee, I guess. But before COVID, I was in a situation where Hustle Crew was actually my side hustle. I worked for a company called Caritta in the community. But when COVID hit, unfortunately, I was laid off from my company, like so many other people out there who have lost their jobs. And so my side hustle became my full-time hustle once again. And it's really interesting because I was just telling my husband about this yesterday. A few weeks ago, being a consultancy, being a diversity and tech consultancy, we actually weren't that busy. A lot of the people that we work with had been furloughed, heads of diversity, heads of community, heads of learning. And now a typical day for us is I wake up, my team and I have dozens of inbound messages on our social media channels, in our inbox and in our emails. So right now we are on a rocket ship, which is kind of crazy, but this is the roller coaster of business. This is what it's like. Some days you're like, how is my business going to survive the rest of the year? And then the next day you're like, how am I going to get back to all of these customers in time? So.
Wow. Okay, that's amazing. Congratulations on all the webinars. I've seen you super busy on social media, and it's really great to see. Yeah, you've been keeping busy for sure, and it's kind of a silver lining, I suppose, of the situation. And
Definitely.
What about you?
I think actually something exactly that Abadesi just mentioned, I think that's probably something everyone who's involved with their company or having a startup, you have no idea how the future is basically going to work out. I mean, one day, like she said, there are things, that you're super excited, a lot of customers, projects and so on. One day, everything can be just completely dead and quiet. You only have a lot of problems and challenges to solve. And so there is not a single typical day. I would say when I used to work in a corporate life, typically you have a morning routine and you keep doing the similar stuff from my experience. Now working in a startup, every day is different. But most of the stuff that I focus on is on the operations, funding, and business development side. So how my day, like let's say my current day right now basically looks like. We are already actually in a way back to the office. We're quite happy. We're working mobilely, everyone in different places. So once in a while I go to the office, once in a while I'm now at home. And I focus on our partnerships with different NGOs and agencies, basically trying to attract and create new long-lasting partnerships, introducing our new solutions and products to the market. So basically working quite a lot hand in hand with our main clients and partners. On the other hand, I focus also on the, I would say, not so exciting, because I love working with people, not so exciting area of financing and operations, which is more like, going around with numbers, checking with different, also the funding opportunities, dealing a lot with suppliers. I mean, as a hardware company, there are definitely been right now a lot of challenges that has been brought up. I mean, as you can imagine, when the whole world pretty much closes, trying to export and import products, it becomes a little bit more bigger challenge than it ever was before. Then when you throw in there that you focus on batteries, power banks, solar panels that are not these typical products that you can simply, just kind of ship and send anytime, there is a lot more challenges we need to look and also improve the supplier, channels we have and everything. So the COVID has definitely brought up a new way of looking the business. And before, when you thought that it had plan B and plan C, now you already have plan D, E, and, it just keeps going, because there are things that you never thought that could happen that you need to also start planning. So it has, in that sense, definitely brought new tasks. But also in our case, I have to say I'm very, very, happy and fortunate with so many, other people. There has been a lot of negative impact right now being brought, like losing your job, or I even know very close of my friends, they had to close down their own businesses and companies here in Finland because what happened. So I'm very happy that in our case, COVID has actually brought new opportunities for us. I mean, as you can imagine, people being isolated right now at home, when you're in rural region and you're at home and you have no access to electricity, you cannot have the electricity to power your lights, your main equipment. It becomes a major issue on how can you continue to study and to learn, how can you get access to the healthcare, centers, get more access of and information about the COVID-19. So there has been definitely and also an increased demand towards our solutions, like portable energy solutions, so we can support all these individuals and families that are isolated at home in rural regions so that they can continue to study, continue to learn regardless what is happening. So that has been the positive side of that. So definitely cannot complain, but like I said, every day is very, very different. So maybe next week something new will take place, but as of now, I'll continue working very closely with new clients and customers that we have.
Okay, interesting. All right, good to know that you're keeping your head above water amongst everything that's going on. And so, who are your sort of key mentors in your journey, and how did you go about finding them? I mean, if there isn't sort of a definitive mentor that you've had, who sort of kept you going and who helped you along the way?
I have a question, because my idea of what a mentor has changed so much as I've gotten older. As I was younger, I always thought of mentors as, that lecturer at university who's always really nice to me and giving advice, or my first boss, like I can ask them about things. But now, especially since I've become a founder, where I found the most value of mentorship is actually from my peers, other founders, other startup friends. I mean, Hannah, you're amazing. I met you on Twitter first, and then, we started hanging out on Product Hunt. But I just feel like there are so many other people making things and creating things and working on things who I rely on. Like in my mind, the list of mentors is huge, because some of them are people whose books I've read I really loved, like Carol Dweck, who came up with the growth mindset. Some of them are people who I follow on Twitter, who I just think are absolutely brilliant. I think of Deborah Okenla of YSYS, Your Startup, Your Story, people like Nafisa of Amalia, Araceli of The Cube, Kike of Black Young Professionals, Michael Berhane, People of Color in Tech, my co-host in Tech. The reason I'm listing them all out is because I really want to encourage everyone who's watching this to think about how they can learn from their friends and the people around them, and people that they don't even necessarily actually know or speak to. So those are the kind of people that I think of as mentors, because they give me really great advice.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, no, that's true. Like, same with myself. I've been able to learn from so many people from Twitter. Like, the Twitter community in tech, like, is amazing, and it's a really great way of just meeting other people that aren't, you know, in your direct group or sort of in your work. And yeah, I was really lucky to have sort of come across you, Abadesi. So yeah, no, I can agree. Like, the idea of mentor is kind of a funny word when there are so many sort of definitions of that, and they don't have to be sort of your superior or your boss or some kind of famous figure. Like, they can literally be just directly around you. So yeah, what about you, Caritta? Have you had a mentor, and where did you meet them, or is it the same with Abadesi?
Actually, I agree a lot, like completely with Abadesi. I think when it comes to the mentor, I can't say just one person that would have been there, basically, you know, the main mentor. I think there has been a lot of from my friends, from the family, pretty much my colleagues. And I definitely agree that some of the best mentors, not only mentors, but also because they exactly understand what I'm going through. I think that's one of the keys when you have your own company as a founder. It's very hard sometimes to talk about certain things with others who come from a completely different industry, because, you know, they might not understand exactly what you're going through. So really having that network of other founders and really being able to really talk to them makes you realize that, you know what, the problems and challenges that I'm going through, you know, they already have gone through the same thing. So I'm actually not alone, you know, so there is a lot of this kind of network that I have. And for example, our founder, Mario, you know, he's definitely been one of the key figures and definitely mentors that have really supported and been there. My fellow co-founder, Jessica Aguilera, I mean, without her, the whole journey would have been completely different. It's great to have that other person that, you know, she can really relate to, like, you know, mentioned as a woman in tech, it's not always the easiest thing. And there are certain things that might be hard for others to relate. So it's been amazing to have her during this journey. There's a lot of other entrepreneurs and, you know, founders, and also through the One Young World community that I belong to as one of the ambassadors. It has definitely also opened up a new world of, you know, amazing individuals working on different startups and social impact companies. Like Spandana in Dubai. I mean, she is amazing what, you know, she's doing. And I think overall, to me, how I see the mentors is not necessarily, you know, exactly like one of these high figures or, you know, some of these very famous, well-known people. I think the best mentors or the best advisors for me are actually the people from my industry, as well as naturally, of course, you know, talking with even with our own investors. They have been extremely helpful. And I think that's the key. You want to try to have as many different kind of views and people in your community, in your network. You know, the more diverse it is, the more diverse and better ideas you can get. I mean, in the end, if all the people I hang around with are the same, you know what, we wouldn't really be progressing or going anywhere. So it's definitely been also one of the key ways for our as a company, you know, to work with, try to have as many different views as possible.
Okay, interesting. And so what advice would you give people who are currently working 9 to 5? They, like you experience, Abadesi, like they don't like their current sort of situation, they don't like their environment, and they just really want to start their own company. How would they go about that in a sort of a low risk or high risk way, and just sort of do that exactly? Because some people sort of might not be in that situation to be able to have the resources or the network or the founder that they need. Yeah, how would you recommend that they get started?
That's a great question. I do a lot of work with young people. The first thing I want to say is, you know, if you are interested in starting a business and you're aged 18 to 24 years old, please check out the Future Startup Now program that I run. It's funded by the Mayor of London. We're accepting applications right now, so just go into a search engine, quotation marks, right, Future. It's a 5-month training program with me and a bunch of other tech experts, and we'll help you turn your idea into a business over 5 weeks. And at the end, you can pitch for a 5K grant for technical equipment from the Mayor of London. So if that sounds like something you want to work on and it can totally fit around your job, please do sign up. And then what I would encourage you to do is start building a community of people who agree that that is a problem worth solving. Everything was very incremental. And I think that's what you have to understand. Like, you just have to build step by step. And a lot of the steps you make are going to be wrong. with the community there, they'll kind of nudge you in a different direction so you can keep going onto the right path. So, there are so many different ways to start connecting with people and building a community now. You can do it on Twitter, you can do it through a Medium blog, but what you want to do is basically start telling the story of your idea and see who that attracts. Because really what startups are is just like, you kind of have a bet or an assumption, you're not really sure. In my case, it was people who are underrepresented in tech want to come together in a community and talk and help each other. I didn't really know that was the case. The first meeting was 6 women, but 4 years later, there's 5,000 of us. Yeah. So really just do things incrementally. And I would say start with that community.
Yeah, that's super true. So sort of like just speak out about the problem and just see who that attracts. Yeah, I think that's really good advice. And what about you, Caritta?
I think one of the main things is that if you want to start your company, or specifically, let's say you want to start a startup, because the difference starting just a company might be that you want to open a shop or, small. So of course, the certain things you go through is a little bit different. But let's say that you have a really cool idea, that you found the problem, now you think that you have this amazing solution and you want to go and launch your startup. The first thing from my experience you really want to find out is that are you willing to really also go out there and take the risk? Because in the end, like, you will be failing a lot. There will be problems. There will be challenges. There's going to be, most of the time, you are literally going to be thinking that you are the craziest person there is. I should have never done that. And you keep really thinking a lot of things through that, maybe that job or the security, maybe that was for me. So that's the one thing. Are you ready to be working without no money for a while? Because that can happen when you have a company, especially if you go full time. Are you willing to put yourself into that kind of position? So, go that through, because maybe launching the startup would start then as a side project, for example, rather than just, throwing yourself completely out there. So that would be one thing. The other thing is that when you find that problem, definitely there are like thousands other people or communities you can reach out. One of the best things that really helped us a lot is that we were part of different incubators and accelerators. These will really help you to get connected to different people, to grow your network. Because one of the key parts for you to grow the company is that even if you have an amazing idea, you have the best solution, the best products, none of that will actually matter. You might not still make it, and all that can be based on the fact that if you don't have the right network, or like Abadesi said, if you don't have the community, that is one of definitely the keys. And through these incubators or accelerators, you can actually get in contact with a lot of people that can help you to grow the company. They will also help you to provide the right different kind of tools, to mentor, especially if you have never done that, before. And then also, like, don't be scared. Like, when we actually started, many of the people, that was the time when we discussed about wearable technology. So that was 5-6 years ago. At that time, wearable tech was completely in its nappies. What it means that most of the people had no knowledge of what it actually is. So there was a lot of people who kept telling that, what we are focusing on, it doesn't make sense. You guys should just stop. It's really stupid. I mean, why would anyone want to be buying this? If there's already a solar panel on the market, why would that make sense? There's a power bank in the market. Why are you doing the same thing? And that's one of the key that you need to remember and put into your mind. There was always going to be competition. I mean, that's why look how many phones there are in the market. Look how many car models we have in the market. I mean, there's always going to be competition. So never think that just because there is a competitor doing similar or even almost the exact thing, that means that what you have is not a good idea. So that's the worst, like the first thing, just forget about it. There's always going to be competition, and competition is good. That means that you have a market. That means that there's an opportunity, and that means there are buyers. So it's actually a good thing. If you come out with something that literally doesn't exist, there is no knowledge of that, it will actually be also a lot harder to take it into the market, because people will be very, very skeptical. It's like, if you go back in time, one of my favorite quotes is from Henry Ford. If he would have asked from people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. So sometimes, and in many occasions when you launch your company, you need to trust your own gut feeling. People will be telling you no, and they will be putting you down a lot, and they will not understand what you're doing. But you need to, in the end, just believe in yourself and just go out there. And regardless, even if you keep failing, you know what, it's okay. I love failing these days. It sounds horrible, but I don't see it as a failure. It's more like a learning. And everything that we have gone through, I would not change a thing. Those are the best things that I have ever learned. But it's definitely a journey of a lifetime you will have if you start your own company.
Okay, that's great advice. I mean, I can definitely agree. Every sort of failure that I've had along my way, they've always been really valuable learning experiences, and you wouldn't be here and like know exactly um what you know without those failures. So yeah, they're sort of valuable parts of your life and your journey. So what challenges have you found with running your company so far, and how did you get over them? I imagine as startup founders, you've just spoken about all the failures you've gone through. What were the biggest ones, and how did you learn from them?
You have an endless number of paths that you can take at any one time. And that's why it's important to be really, really disciplined and set milestones. Like, I'm a big believer in setting a milestone, like get your North Star and then focus on that. And anytime you get inbound, like questions, offers, attentions, think about how that relates to getting you closer to your North Star, closer to your milestone, and let that be the thing that makes you decide, what you're going to work on and what's most important. But yeah, and just generally prioritization, because, both personal life and professional life, there's always thousands and thousands of things you can do, but, we need to sleep, we need to eat, we need to look after ourselves. And when you are trying to turn your dream into reality, it's hard sometimes to have boundaries, because you have an idea and you're like, I just want to work on this. Or, your partner is calling you to dinner and you're just like, one more email. So I think the challenge for me is like, how do I fit in the time to do everything, but also keep time to be healthy and kind to myself? And how do I make sure I make the right decisions that put my company in the right direction? The reality is there is no right. There's no perfect plan and no perfect decision, but wrestling with that reality all the time is hard.
Yeah, and I can imagine. And like I can really relate to that, sort of having loads of ideas and you just want to work on it immediately, but it's just not really the best thing for you and yourself and your personal life. So yeah. And yeah, what about you, Caritta? I imagine, you must have had lots of failures, and I'd love to know, not failures, learnings. What have you learned from most, and how has it sort of helped you in this?
I mean, there has been like thousands. I mean, we would be here, I'm telling you, like years and probably like hours and hours if we start going through every single, all the challenges that we've had through. I would say from the beginning, when we started with Testback, some of the biggest learnings definitely we went through. And I think the biggest challenge is something that when you start your company, you really, really want to focus on is the people that you work with, the team that you surround yourself with. Something that we are very strong believers, and I'm a very strong believer, that it really doesn't matter, where you come from, what fancy degrees you have. You don't really need to go to the best universities, or be the smartest in the industry. What is the key, and these are the type of people you really want to surround yourself with, is to look into the type of people that share the same vision that you have, that has the right attitude, that has the right personality. Because in the end, every skills and talents, all that can be taught. But when it comes to about the attitude or the personality that person has, that is something that either they have it or they don't. And in startup world, this is extremely important, because of course in a corporate world, people are typically, you work, let's say 9 till 5. Perfect. You go home, the work stays, at the workplace. It's very easy to have this kind of limits. And to be honest, it is important to have these limits. In a startup world, it doesn't mean that you need to be working 24/7. I know there's this idea that when you have your own company, you need to constantly be working, every week and every hour. And if you're not working on it, that makes you like a bad person. To me, I have learned that the hard way. But for now, I work only for a certain time. Most of the time, also, I have time for myself, and I force myself to also find the time for my family, for my friends. Like Abadesi was mentioning, there will never be the clear balance that you can have with your personal life and with your company. And it's just up to you to find that. And for me, the key is that when I'm working with my company, I'm fully focused on that. When I'm with my family, I'm fully focused on that. So whatever I do, I put my mind into that, whether it means that in one day it will be 15 hours working the company, or one day it will be like, 15 hours just focusing on my family. So that's the key thing. Whatever you do, you need to be fully focused on that. But like mentioning earlier, the team, the people that you work with, they are the most important part of any company. Like, it doesn't matter what idea or product solution you have, it will not work out if you don't have the right team that is there to push you towards the hard times, that is there and understand, the vision, the road you're taking, and truly, the people that you can actually share the journey with. That's definitely one of the keys that I really want to emphasize. And we have learned a lot during the journey, I can say, working with people. On the other hand, of course, there are like 1,000 challenges. There's no point trying to go through it everything. But the other key that I would definitely also want to emphasize is that once you have your own, let's say your startup, you have now, started with your company, try to not only have the right people around you, but always also look for the other network, the other people. It doesn't mean that you need to do what they tell you, but it's always good to get a lot of ideas and also a lot of advice from other people, because sometimes there's a lot of things that we don't realize ourselves. If you work 24/7 on one thing, suddenly the rest of the world becomes completely blind to you and you don't even see anymore the challenge or the problem. So it's good to always ask from people that has nothing to do with the company, that doesn't even come from your field, to once in a while and check that, look, does this actually make sense? Because certain things, they will start making sense when you sit with that for several hours a day.
Yeah, and going back to sort of managing your personal life, as you said, you make sure that when you're with your family, you're with your family. When you're with your work, you make sure you're working. And also sort of it's quite hard to sort of balance the whole sort of personal and work life when you have like a new idea that you just really want to work on. Have you kind of experienced that kind of burnout before, and how did you deal with it, and how do you go, like, going ahead from that, how do you prevent that from happening again?
Whew, how many times now? How many times have founders burned out? It is, I always say that you don't know what you don't know. And I think what I didn't know was how to recognize the signs of burnout. The first year that I worked full time on my startup, as I mentioned, I had quit my job. So I was just doing other random jobs on top of building my startup. I would like guest lecture if someone would take me. I would consult for other founders if they wanted me. And I was just working like 12, 14, 16 hours a day, which is of course not sustainable. Not only do we need sleep, but we need to eat, we need to play, we need to rest. And then what I realized was, when we let ourselves get to the point of burnout, it takes so long to get out of that slump. I mean, it feels a bit like when you're kind of depressed, like you just have no, mojo, like Austin Powers movie, whatever. So it's like you lose your mojo at the end of a burnout cycle. But over the last few years, as I've gotten older, I've learned to talk about that, like be vulnerable with my support network. So, my husband, my friends, and say to them, I'm really bad at stopping working. I'm really bad at doing self-care. So when you see me working too much, will you please remind me that self-care is important? Burnout is so unhealthy. It's so scary. It can even take your life away in the worst case scenario. So just remember, like, your health is your wealth, and alive, and you're not healthy, you definitely can't have a successful business.
Yeah.
So from one sufferer to the rest of the ambitious world, please look after yourselves.
Yeah, 7-Minute Diary. I'll definitely check that out. I haven't heard of that before. But yeah, and you, Caritta, have you experienced it before, and how do you deal with it?
Well, definitely, a lot of things I can relate to what Abadesi said. I think one of the key, in the end, to be honest, I can't say that I will never have a burnout again, or, I'm not going to go through it again, to be honest, knowing that will probably still, happen. But something that I learned, of course, is to recognize certain symptoms already. I have lost a lot of sleep. I've been having a lot of sleepless nights from the past, even I still do. What is the key to try to remember, and I keep reminding myself every day, is to forgive myself. It's okay. You don't need to be doing everything right. It's okay to be doing this wrong, and it's okay not to work, all the time. So we are already, as human beings, we tend to criticize ourselves a lot. We tend to also, take it into ourselves when we hear the rest of the world sometimes criticizing us, or we hear about these bad things, or when we focus only on the negative parts, it will drive you crazy. And I think that's the worst thing. If I start thinking about all the challenges and the problems, my mind will just explode, and that's the worst thing that happened. So what is the best thing, or one way that really helps me is to focus on the good things. And first thing, when I feel like, you know what, I feel down, I reach out to other people. Don't try to be alone. Don't deal with anything alone. That is pointless. And the best thing you can do is to talk to others. And again, this goes back on having those people like family around you that you know you can talk to and that can understand the situation you are in, like my fellow founders. So that's the most important thing. Straight away when I feel down, I talk to them, and every time they lift me up. And I think that's the best feeling, you know, you can have, knowing that there are other people who can relate to you and are always there to lift you up regardless of what.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you. It's really helpful for me as well, because I've sort of dealt with burnout before, and I just get to as Abadesi said, it's really, really hard to recover. So you're sort of out for like a week and you just can't get anything done anymore. And that's probably much more detrimental in the long term than it is beneficial in the short term, just to work so hard. So that's great. So we're going to have a quick break now. I'm going to hand over to Anissa, and then after that session, we'll be doing a Q&A breakout to answer your questions.
Yes.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, panel, for your honest reflections and really valuable insights, and to Hannah for moderating and pulling that all together. We're going to have a break now for about 15 minutes. We'll be back here at 11 to ask some questions with the same panel. We will see you then. Thanks.
Want access to more CogX videos? Subscribe now for free at cogx.co.